So today, I thought that I would talk about the potential for a campaign in Halo Infinite which is focused around the Banished, playing as the Banished and actually going through and killing a whole bunch of the UNSC. Now yes, this is a very far-fetched idea at first, but the more you look at Halo's history, the more it starts to make a little bit more sense, because it does open up a lot of avenues with storytelling and the potential to have a much better campaign that covers a lot more ground, because you're seeing things from different perspectives. So let's jump right into it. I'm Kiv, and today we're going to have a look at some previous Halo campaigns and what that may mean for Halo Infinite. So right off the bat, this is nothing that has been confirmed. I simply wanted to discuss this to the best of my ability and try and put some ideas out there in the community. And from what I may suggest in this video, if on the very slim chance that someone from 343 sees this, then hey, I'll consider that a win. So my idea is I would like to see a Banished campaign DLC which would be able to cover a lot of plot points that are in Halo Infinite's general story that we would be able to experience with a lot more fun and joy playing as the enemy. Because we very clearly know from Halo Infinite's story so far that there is a major battle that the UNSC gets its ass handed to it by the Banished. So I think this could be a decent starting point for a Banished DLC campaign. Now I imagine a lot of you are probably sat there wondering,
Wait a minute!
Why does that sound familiar? Oh yeah, that's right. It's because this isn't the first time we've had a Halo campaign from a different point of view. There is obviously the clear golden example of Halo 2 with the Arbiter and the Chief and their parallel stories. I think one of the reasons why Halo 2 is held so close to everyone's heart is that it actually tells a good story from different points of view, and you start to understand a bit more of the inner workings of the Covenant. It starts to actually give you, as the player, a bit more context and a bit more info, while also offering a different style of gameplay. So you are still fighting grunts, jackals, and elites, but you are playing as the Arbiter, and you are slaughtering the heretics as you believe them to be. The Arbiter's story is so impactful and is a huge part of Halo 2, which is why when the trilogy is completed in Halo 3, the impact is so much more powerful. Unfortunately, the only other main title where you have parallel stories being told is with Halo 5 Guardians, but I wouldn't even really call it a parallel story because you mostly play as Locke, so it's kind of an example of what not to do. But let's not focus on that, let's focus on a game that did things a hell of a lot better and had the Banished, Halo Wars 2. Or I guess more specifically, Awakening the Nightmare, the Halo Wars 2 DLC, which was awesome. Because you were able to play as the Banished, you were able to see things from their perspective, and it did help connect up to the main story, while also giving you some fun gameplay fighting against the Flood. Now, using that as a rough template, I think that Halo Infinite could definitely do a campaign centered around playing as a Banished brute. Story-wise, it could revolve around the initial battle that takes place towards the start of the game where the UNSC loses to the Banished. This could be really unique, especially in an open world setting. Instead of going around saving Marines as the Chief, you could now go around slaughtering Marines as a Banished brute, and it could definitely open up a fair few different avenues for 343 to have fun with. And just to throw it out there, I think it would be a pretty cool idea to be able to play as Hyperius, because he has supposedly killed Spartan Locke, which is as seen by the shoulder-mounted helmet. I think this would be a great opportunity for 343 to be able to expand on Halo Infinite's story, and it would give the community the satisfaction of killing Spartan Locke yourself. That's just my idea story-wise. I don't really know what 343 has planned for Locke. I mean, this could factor in with Halo Infinite's potential boss fights, where you could have Spartan Locke as a final boss And by defeating him, your character, potentially Hyperius, is promoted and rewarded. You know, he gets a position in the Hand of Atriox for defeating Spartan Locke. And this gives context to the overall story and connects up with the main campaign. So that way it's relevant and people can connect the dots. But at the end of the day, it does come down to gameplay. And I think that if you were playing as the Banished, there's a couple of unique gameplay opportunities that you could put into Halo Infinite. Now, gameplay wise, you would need to change a fair few things so that it all makes sense. So your movement speed would have to be a fair bit slower, because brutes are built like fridges, you know, they're just built different. And they don't sprint around like Usain Bolt. So because of that, I think the gameplay would be fun, challenging, and something we haven't seen. As far as enemy varieties go, there's actually, surprisingly, a couple of different enemy types that they could work with if you were playing as the Banished. So you could start out with the very bottom of the barrel, which is just standard UNSC personnel, people who are not meant for combat. And these could have, at the very most, I guess, a sidekick as their weapon, and they would basically be the human version of grunts, where they don't really do a whole lot of damage, but it's nice target practice, while they just kind of cower in a corner, crying themselves to sleep, and they could almost kind of run away, similar to how grunts do when you take out the elites. Now, continuing on with the list of enemies that you could be facing, the next one would be your standard UNSC Marines. Then the next step up the ladder would be ODSTs, and I guess you could end with Spartans, because we do happen to have a couple hundred Spartan 4s on the UNSC Infinity. So if you really wanted to, there's actually a fair few different types of enemies that you could face. There is also the possibility that 343 could use the AI bot programming that they have for multiplayer and transfer that across to these enemies. So Spartans will behave like Spartan AI bots, and they end up actually posing a reasonable challenge to most players, especially when there's more than one around. So gameplay wise, there is some serious potential if 343 explores this opportunity. Another thing that I wanted to mention was equipment, because Halo Infinite is a live service, so that means we're going to get content on a regular basis as the life cycle of the game goes on. So there is pretty much an opening for one of the future seasons of Halo Infinite to be just completely dedicated to more Banished content, and that could be in the form of this Banished campaign DLC, alongside multiplayer content like equipment, maps, and hell, even also cosmetics. It would be pretty cool to see some Banished themed Spartan armor. That would be really cool to see, I reckon. But yeah, that's story and gameplay wise something that I think could seriously happen for Halo Infinite. And yeah, it is a little bit far-fetched at first, but when you consider other previous Halo games, it doesn't seem totally outside the realm of possibility. So I think that's probably a good point to call it for today. So let me know what you all think about this idea in the comments section down below. Do you think that it's actually possible? And furthermore, do you think that this is something that you would be interested in? Let me know what you think. Thank you all for watching the video until the very end. If you are new here, please make sure you subscribe so we can hit 1K before Halo Infinite drops. It's all part of the great journey. But anyway, I've been Kiv, and I'll see you all on the next one.